David Jacobson with a review of the Hamilton Khaki Field Quartz. This is a watch I've had for a little over a year now, and that I think is a really solidly built, reliable timepiece. I'll start this review with a tour of the watch and give its basic specs. Then I'll tell you why I chose it, why I'm mostly very happy with it, and what I would change about it if I could. Let's start by taking a close-up look. The watch we're looking at here is the 38mm version of the Hamilton Khaki Field with a quartz movement. Reference number H68411533. This watch remains available today, although they have changed to a different quartz movement. There's also a nearly identical automatic offering, which I'll talk about later. The first thing you notice when you look at this watch is the field watch styling. It's made to look like the kind of watch an infantry soldier would wear in the early to mid-20th century. And in fact, Hamilton made many such watches for the U.S. Army back when they themselves were an American company. Today they're part of the Swiss Swatch Group. You can see some clear similarities between the Hamilton Khaki and this World War II era Hamilton, including the large, easy-to-read numbers, the simple brushed metal bezel and lugs, and the large textured crown. The modern watch adds a few additional elements, especially the date window at 3 o'clock and the 24-hour time running inside of the large indices. There are, of course, also modern touches. The numbers, these pips around the outer track, and the hands are painted with phosphorescent material. The crystal is sapphire and should be very difficult to scratch. I've worn this watch every day for a little over a year and, as you can see, not a scratch yet except a few on the stainless steel itself. And of course the most modern touch of all is the quartz movement, which on this watch is an ETA 955.112, and on the models available today is an ETA F06.111. While I have the watch off, let's also take a look at the back. It's stainless steel and engraved with the Hamilton logo and some information about the piece. Water resistant to 10 bar, stainless steel, sapphire crystal, Swiss made, and a serial number. What led me to buy this particular watch? Well, first, for me, it has to be quartz. I love the idea of a mechanical watch and that connection to traditional watchmaking, but it's just not worth the loss in accuracy. I paid $250 for this watch and find that it tends to drift by about 5 to 10 seconds per month. If I care about being accurate to the nearest minute, I only need to reset a quartz watch a couple of times a year. I'd have to reset an entry-level automatic every couple of days. I also knew I wanted a fairly small diameter watch, which 38mm is by modern standards. I have pretty thin wrists, and I think a bigger 40 or 42mm watch just wouldn't look right. I also knew I wanted a watch with a sapphire crystal so I didn't have to worry about scratching it, and decent waterproofing so I didn't have to worry about that either. Of course, this watch is on a leather strap, which I think looks great, but does preclude taking it in the water. Finally, because I wanted to wear it every day, I didn't want something that was really bulky. I think this watch meets all of what I wanted very nicely. The movement is the 7-jewel ETA 955.112, which is now the 3-jewel ETA F06.111 in the newer watches. I don't know enough to know if this distinction is meaningful. The movement has what's called an end-of-life indicator. When the battery's getting low, the second hand is supposed to start moving in 4-second jumps to tell you it's time to change the battery. I can't say if this actually happens, since I haven't replaced that yet. And, as I mentioned, the movement has that standard quartz accuracy of about plus or minus 15 seconds per month. The stainless steel and sapphire construction seems very durable, at least so far, and I continue to really like the design. The face is very clear and easy to read, aside from one issue I'll come back to in a minute. You set the time and date in the usual way, and that works well. With the leather strap, you sacrifice waterproofing, but I think you get something that looks really nice. The included strap is of good quality and says Hamilton, both on the underside and on the clasp. For my 6 3/4 inch diameter wrist, I'm using the second to smallest hole in the strap. If your wrist is much smaller than mine, you might have issues there. The strap is the only place where the watch is showing any signs of wear after a year of use. No watch is perfect, and there are, of course, some features that it would be convenient to have that the Khaki Field doesn't. The most obvious would be some mechanism for timing, either a chronograph movement or a rotating time bezel. But I'm not sure how you would do this without either crowding the clean face or bulking up the overall watch. There are, however, two straight-up flaws with the design that I do want to mention. The first problem is with these markings around the outside of the face. We have illuminated pips on the hours and tick marks on each second, which, by the way, the second hand does a good job of lining up with, at least on this particular watch. But then between each second mark, there are 4 more little tick marks. These serve no purpose, since a quartz movement only ticks in 1 second increments. They just make it hard to read the time down to the minute and second at a glance. My guess is that these small tick marks are there because this watch shares nearly the same face with a 38mm Khaki Field having an automatic movement, where the smoothly sweeping second hand would pass over those little tick marks. That being said, I think they would still just make the watch harder to read even in that case. While I have this picture up, I'll also point out that for those who prefer mechanical watches, there is the Hamilton H68411533, which is also a 38mm Khaki Field, but which does have the self-winding mechanical movement. There are a couple of other differences between the quartz and automatic watches as well. Note the red tip on the end of the seconds hand for the automatic, and the polished bezel rather than the brushed finish for the quartz. The second issue is with the glow-in-the-dark paint. It just isn't very good. After exposing the watch to bright light, the numerals and pips around the dial only remain visible for a few minutes. The hour and minute hands remain visible longer, perhaps a couple of hours in total darkness, but certainly not all through the night. But that being said, I think this is a great everyday quartz watch. It looks great, and at least so far, it holds up too. You can pay less, but I don't think you're going to get something that is so well made. And frankly, I'm not sure what you're going to get unless you pay a whole lot more. The Hamilton Khaki Field Quartz, H68411533, highly recommended.